Welcome to the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund Challenge. Let's go meet the fashion funders in their natural habitats. Prabal Gurung, Robert Keller, Moss Lippow, Gregory Parkinson, and Pamela Levin.
I'm Prabal Gurung. I'm a fashion designer in New York City. I was born in Singapore and we moved to Nepal. That's where my family's from. Studied fashion in India, in New Delhi, and then I went to internship and started working with the designer there. I was excited by images and the colors and particularly women in a certain way. The most important creative decision is the girl, the woman that I'm designing for. I always say, like, when I'm designing for a thinking man sex symbol, and from the past 3 seasons, how is she growing? As I'm growing as a designer, what are her needs? If I see a fabric and I start imagining and sketching that dress, and if I can see it in my head, then I know it's a good design. I said to myself, if there's one person who likes it, if one person buys it, it's a job well done. And I've had an extremely, tremendously warm, welcoming, so I couldn't have asked more.
So my name is Robert Keller and I'm a menswear designer here in New York. I'm from Germany, I'm from Hamburg. I went to school in Rhode Island. A big influence on me is always The Cure. It's been my favorite band since I was a young teenager. But music is always, I think for almost every designer, a very important aspect of what you do. It influences your mood. I usually come into work at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning on my own. And I just sit down and I do pretty quick sketches, just sort of getting out ideas. The way that I start every season is I find something that I'm interested in, usually a time and a place. It helps me sort of focus. And then when I start looking for images of the time, I start reading books about it. We go to the design board, which is sort of like the big sort of puzzle to get everything together. And we do everything by hand. I love when there's smudges, I love when there's sort of, you can see the person's fingerprints on it. If we would win, which would be amazing, I could have somebody now to kind of maybe warn me of some of the things, the difficulties in the next couple of steps. I think that's priceless.
I would traipse through the park every day because I lived on the other side of the park in my homemade outfits, and it was really, looking back, it's hysterical. I'm Gregory Parkinson and I'm a women's wear designer, and I make clothes that I think are very personal. I grew up a million miles away from here, actually, in northern England. My interest in fashion really came as a mid to late teenager when I started to decide that I wanted to look differently, which I think is a very English preoccupation, and I started to make my own clothes. I use my hands every day to actually work on my craft, which I think is really all I ever aspired to. I feel that every collection is just a new exploration. I make things all year round regardless of season, which I think is also an important part of my creative process. I usually assemble different ideas that I like or am drawn to and rework those ideas, and the collection starts to evolve and grow out of that. I feel as if I have a lot of visual ideas and we're not able to realize those because of financial limitations. So that really would be the very first thing that I would do.
Well, Cleopatra, she would have maybe worn glasses that looked like eyes of Horus, so I pretty much do eyewear. I make custom eyewear for people. I do a line which is available in stores. I'd always thought sunglasses were cool, and I just started creating things in this medium, and they were very well received, and I just said, wow, this is great. The possibilities for creativity are tremendous, and because eyewear is actually worn on the face, it can really alter your persona more than any other accessory item, and probably to the same degree as actual apparel. I try to infuse it with a lot of the iconic glamour from the films I like. What might be apparent from the space that we're shooting is I'm struggling with capitalization. Pretty simply, stock would be about $60,000. I'd want a vice president in charge of sales. It'll be about $78,000. I could go with an outside distributor, maybe a small pick and pack operation. Projected gross sales from that would be about $428,000.
That kid who would go outside and find a bunch of slugs or snails and put them in a box and a couple frogs and bring them home and be like, Mom, can I keep them? Hi, my name is Pamela Levin. I'm a jewelry designer in New York City. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and we moved to Florida when I was a little kid. Pretty early on, I found that I wanted to draw all the time, paint all the time, work with clay. I was always making things. I was extremely drawn to animals and nature. What fascinated me at a really early age was the connection between people and their spirituality and the ways that they physically represented that. I was always interested in adornment and creative answers to the idea of adornment and pushing the boundaries of what that meant. Most of my jewelry begins with a wax carving. I think what was the most fundamental thing for me was carving. I had always been a sculptor. Now that the company has grown the way it has, I think more about my customer than I did when I first started. If I have the good fortune of winning, we would need a bigger space and potentially to hire a few more people, give raises. Is that okay to say?